Good morning and welcome everyone present in the chamber and those listening online to the business of the Growth Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Sam French and I'm the chairman of this committee. Vice Chairman Councillor Reuben Robinson is also present. The audio-visual feed of this formal public meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council's website. All comments to be raised today will remain accessible online. There is no fire drill planned for this morning. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please leave the chamber, exit the building through the reception and assemble in the front car park. Please have any mobiles, laptops and iPads on silent mode and the hearing loop is now activated. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman, who will invite you to speak in turn. I ask that you indicate early and clearly when you wish to speak. So on to item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to report, we have Councillor Bailey Robinson replacing Councillor Grantham until further notice.
On to item 2, declarations of members' interests. Do members wish to declare any interests? No.
Chairman, just a quick question, sorry. Just note, Councillor Robinson has been appointed to the committee until further notice. I appreciate he's also a bag carrier and executive support councillor. Can you just confirm what is the executive support councillor for? Because I know there's sometimes there might be a conflict of interest between that role and his other role, just to make sure that we are in the clear with his executive support role and his membership of the committee.
I think for this committee it's Councillor Hassan. No?
I'm just asking what his executive support role is and to check whether there's any overlap, Chairman. I don't know what his role is. Something to do with highways and something else.
So I'm Executive Support Councillor for Highways and Transport and Resources.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on that, are we content that the resources element doesn't interfere or overlap with the business of this committee and there isn't a conflict of interest? Has any review of that been undertaken?
That's been looked at.
It has been checked before because I'm on multiple committees and it's not been a problem before. Children's Scrutiny, obviously there's resource comments on there, but I'm still able to comment.
Thanks. Appreciate your interest there. Did you have something to say, Councillor Baxter? Yeah?
I've not recognised this before, that somebody's replaced until further notice. I thought the committee was appointed by the council. Is that not the case? I understand that Councillor Robinson's very welcome to substitute.
Councillor Crofts will explain, don't we?
No, it's a group leader responsibility can make changes until further notice.
There we go. On to item 3, the minutes of the meeting. Members are asked to consider the accuracy of the minutes to agree that they are correct and accurate record of the previous meeting. Please turn to pages 5 to 14 of the agenda pack. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Robinson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hastings. And now Councillor Dyer, do you have a question on the minutes?
Just on the minutes, Chairman. Thank you very much. Just quoting an element when we were discussing the tourism, the visitor economy update. If you look in there, it says, a member asked why the item had been scheduled when the most up-to-date STEAM data was not available and formally proposed that a further visitor economy update with the latest statistics be provided when current data was available. In response, officers stated that the item had been scheduled to obtain members' steer on the breadth and the content of the strategy and that additional data could be brought forward when available. Officers stated that they would go away, take soundings on when the data would be available and what it would look like, and that they would bring data back to the committee. I haven't, since that meeting, Chairman, heard any such soundings from officers, or we haven't been emailed as to when this would be coming back. I was going to bring this up in the work programme because it's not scheduled in the work programme either. I thought at the last meeting we agreed that the visitor economy update would probably come back in June or July when the STEAM data was available, and we haven't heard from any growth officer as to when this was coming back. So it's disappointing that we haven't, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're talking about accuracy of the minutes, but it's Justin, if you do want to come in, go ahead.
Yeah, no, there was a conversation that said, can it come back in June or July? And we said, no, it would be better coming back in the autumn. And we are planning to bring the data and a full tourism strategy for your consideration in the autumn.
Chairman, I don't think it was explicit as that in the last meeting of the growth scrutiny. The minutes don't reflect that either. But so in the autumn, is that autumn 2026, Justin? Yes.
There we go. All right. Councillor Baxter, do you have a question on the accuracy of the minutes?
I disagree with Councillor Dyer. I thought it was explicit. I thought we did say September, but as the minutes don't reflect a conversation, we'll never know.
Okay. I mean, that can be added, can't it? If necessary.
Just to remind members that the audiovisual of each meeting is uploaded on YouTube. It's available for accuracy, so we can be held accountable based on that as well. So just adding this extra level of security in terms of what happens in the chamber and what is agreed. But we are working away to make additions to the work programme when officers are comfortable that they can bring information for this committee's benefit.
Councillor Baxter.
So, pulling that thread, is the did we not? I thought we had said that we'd put it in the work programme. And if we did say let's put it in the work programme, why isn't it in the minutes to say put it in the work programme?
We can go back and reflect that in the minutes. I'm sure we can make this amendment, and it will be added in the work programme as soon as we have an idea of when it will be coming back. Will be added. Thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Baxter. We'll move to the vote now. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Thank you, that's carried. On to item 4, announcements by the Chairman, Executive Councillors and Lead Officers. No real announcements, but I'd like to welcome the 3 young chaps over there, Peter, Oliver and Anthony, who are doing their work placements, so thank you for joining us. Do we have any executive announcements? Nope. Any senior officers? Karen Cassar?
Yeah, good morning, Chairman. This is just to let the committee know that this is my last working week for Lincolnshire County Council, and I'd like to introduce my colleague, Marie, sat behind me. Marie Marriott has been appointed to the Assistant Director for Corporate Property, and she'll be taking up her role on the 1st of July.
Thank you for that. Councillor Baxter?
Thank you. Last time we met, at this point, I asked a question and you read out a statement about the Task and Finish Group and the proposal involving the Chief Internal Auditor aimed at answering outstanding questions about the Grantham High Street funding that has been snatched away from the people of Grantham. Can you please tell me how that internal audit is going?
I don't have that information, and it's not a debatable item, the announcements.
Who does?
I don't know who. We'll probably have to come back to you after the meeting, yeah. Councillor Dyer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I was looking forward to today because I appreciate this is the first Growth Scrutiny Committee meeting since Councillor Kelly was sacked from his role and Councillor Matthews took over the role. Have we received apologies from Councillor Matthews today? Because unless he's hiding behind that fan, even though I think it's Councillor Hassan, he isn't in the room. So is he in the building? Oh, there we go. Have we had apologies from Councillor Matthews or any reason as to why he's not at committee today?
He's not a member of the committee, so he does not have to formally give an apology.
Councillor Gibson's shown up.
Executive members come to committees and sit and listen. They don't have to be here. They can listen to it online or whatever. So you don't have to supply apologies.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, the gas framework contract reprocurement. This pre-decision scrutiny report to the executive can be found on pages 15 to 28 of the agenda pack. The report invites the Growth Scrutiny Committee to consider a report on the gas framework contract re-procurement, which is being presented to the executive for a decision on the 14th of July 2026. All comments from the committee will be reported to the executive as part of their consideration of this item. The actions required The report invites the committee to consider the report and to determine whether the committee supports the recommendations to the executive as set out in the report. The report will be presented by Mary Marriott, Head of Facilities and Workspace Management. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. So the report considers the procurement for the mains gas that supplies all of our corporate properties. It recommends that the ESPO Energy Framework route be procured for the next 4 years from April 2027 through to March 2031. It's been presented to the Executive for decision on the 14th of July. There is an estimated contractual value of 3 to 3.5 million, around £800,000 per year associated with this contract, and that has a variance due to the fact that it's driven very much by consumption. So, for example, cooler winters will mean we would spend more on gas, and therefore we need to forecast with a window. A key point to highlight is that this is a continuation of a long-established and very well-performing approach. ESPO has supported us effectively for over 25 years, providing a fully managed service and access to specialist expertise to the benefit of an aggregated public sector buying power. The energy in its totality remains a highly volatile market, and the framework's purchase and advance strategy helps us to manage risk, improve our budget certainty, and importantly, this avoids any transition risks, additional internal resource pressures and unnecessary costs. Alternative options have been fully considered, but they either introduce greater risk, reduce the transparency, or offer no clear financial or operational advantage. Overall, this recommendation provides the best balance of cost control, risk management and service quality whilst ensuring continuity of supply for our estate. It should be noted that 55% of our schools also subscribe to ESPO, whilst this is not covered in this decision as the schools interact independently. It should also be noted that the Council's electricity procurement is managed under a different contractual arrangement with ESPO, which doesn't expire until September 2028, so this is out of scope for this decision. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mary. I think the first question we have is from Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. I'm not sure who the portfolio holder is for this. Could you tell me, please?
That's Councillor Gibson.
Great, thanks. So I'd rather address my questions to Councillor Gibson than address officers, because I don't wish to offend. This is an extremely, for me, complacent report. We've been for 25 years in a very cosy relationship with ESPO. It mentions that we're a founding member. To me, it seems astonishing that for 25 years, ESPO have been the best value for the procurement of energy. The actual costs of using ESPO are unclear, but this is a £3.5 million contract, and there is some money that is being made by ESPO to do this. As is said in the option 3, alternative public buying organisations, I'd like to know what conversations have taken place with GCA or YPO or any of the other many public buying organisations there are across the country. I've spoken to some, not about this contract, but I know that it's not a crowded marketplace, but there are plenty of people out there. So exactly what conversations have taken place with YPO, and how is the executive member satisfied that we are getting actual value for money for this, rather than just sticking with the same cosy relationship that we've always had? The reform stood or stand on this thing about government efficiency and digging down and lifting every stone in order to find savings. There isn't any evidence of that in this report. And in my opinion, it should be sent back to the officers so that we get more detail of just exactly what conversations have taken place with the alternative suppliers. If you went to an alternative supplier, any of them, at the very least, they would give you a review of your portfolio, and they would go through each portfolio, each site, each meter, and check that all the MPANs lined up, all the the meter numbers added up properly. There's none of that in here. There's also, I'm not sure that it's not in here, but I certainly couldn't find it. There's no reference to whether or not the contract offers day+1 data, whether it's just a bureau service or whether there's enhanced services, whether or not we get energy management proactively. Do we get any exception reporting on gas use at any particular buildings? If a particular building suddenly leaves the gas on overnight every day of the year, will they pick it up and tell us proactively? And if you do that with other organisations, then other organisations will be taking the weight off our staff and proactively trying to save us money. So forgive me, Chair, forgive me, Councillor Gibson, but I think this is not good enough.
Thank you. So I can see you've got a lot of concerns there. Who shall we go to address those? Mary? Oh, go on.
Yeah, I can pick up the first point around the costs. So we've reviewed comparable market sector frameworks. Whilst pricing data is commercially sensitive, the procurement team analysis shows ESPO performs competitively, so at the lower end of the market. In addition, as the council is one of the founding members of ESPO, it receives a rebate as which further strengthens value for money.
If it's commercially sensitive, then it should be on pink paper and it should be within the pack. And also, I'm not convinced you're comparing like with like. Can you tell me categorically that the services offered by ESPO are the same as would be offered by WIPO or Laser or CGA or any of the others?
Thanks. Do you want to come back on that and then we'll go to the next speaker?
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, we believe that they are comparable.
Thank you. Who's on next speaker?
Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I had 3 quick questions. The first question, Councillor Baxter's already raised, and I'll just reiterate it. The report highlights the disadvantage of this option is that it acknowledges limited transparency in comparing public sector frameworks. So how can we be ensured that this does offer best value? Second question is on the costings. How confident are we, or do we have any concerns about how sensitive these forecasts are to issues either way? So later on today we're looking at a paper around reduction of estate size. Will that have an impact on these forecasts? And in the other way, anything going on in the world around energy prices and that kind of stuff, how sensitive are those predictions? And then my final question, Chair, is it is relating to this, but it's broader sort of thing. So it's around the social value of these types of contracts when we are doing the procurement. So for example, when we do the highways, Balfour Beatty, they offer quite an array of social value opportunities for us as councillors in our communities, members of the public. Do all of our procurement exercises follow that similar thing? So would this contract require a certain amount of social value opportunities, whether that be for the local supply chain, whether it be training opportunities, whether it be whatever within our local community? Do we build that into all of our procurement? Thank you.
Stuart, do you want to come on to that one?
Yeah, so with my my limited knowledge, the current gas prices, due to the geopolitical situation in the Middle East, have risen recently. So they're currently at around 121.34 per therm. So there is that market fluctuation in terms of gas prices. With ESPO forward purchasing gas, then we're not seeing that rise in the gas prices. It's staying stable. Gas has been procured until the end of March 2027, when this contract expires.
Councillor Robinson.
Sorry, I think you did have a couple of the social value one. Yeah.
I think if it's okay, we can come back to you on the social value element within the gas contract proposal. Just to point out that this gas contract will be managed over the duration of the contract as well, so we can pick up things like social value with ESPO.
Apologies. Could you give us an idea of what you mean by social value with the contract? Give an example of what you think ESPO could potentially do for that.
So, for example, well, in very simplest terms, you know, when we for the gas chain, using local contractors on the jobs, they could offer a certain amount of apprenticeships within the scheme, whatever it might be, supporting, you know, when I'm doing my day job, part of what I audit businesses on is their social value. So that can be anything from, you know, providing, such as in the highways, they have 3 days where we can do community projects, don't they? So things like that, just any community work, right down to, I'll get a plug-in sponsorship of local football teams is always appreciated. So yeah, there's lots of things that, you know, all companies should be doing. My question is, how do we manage it and observe that within the council?
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you very much. Just touching on, because LGR was sort of lightly mentioned in the report, but it also says one of the advantages of keeping the ESPO energy framework is all current district councils are also within the ESPO organisational structure. How does that benefit in terms of the volatility of LGR? How does that, would that minimise any sort of admin cost to changing that? And how long have all of the other district councils been part of this and had this framework as well? So, for example, East Lindsey or South Kesteven District Council, how long have they been part of this framework?
So I'll take that one. So with regards to LGR, the advantage of ESPO is that it allows us to scale up and scale down our estate at any time. So when we're doing property rationalisation, we're able to remove properties from the agreement, and we're also able to add some on if that position happens. It would make it, as we go through LGR, being able to amalgamate with the other councils already using that would make it easy. It would cut down on the administrative burden, and it would be useful for from a contracts perspective to be able to do that. So with regards to how long the other councils have been in there, I don't have that information to hand. I could try and find out, but we don't have that information to hand at the moment.
Councillor Baxter, do you know?
As a point of information, I'd probably say forever. It's a very cosy club. Nobody ever breaks the ring. They're all absolutely limpet-like to ESPO. There's no thought of looking at any other potential provider, whether independent or another public sector provider. And following up on Councillor Bowles' point, I know that some other providers do have an explicit social value added, in the same way as we get our highways contractors to offer some extra social value. Some of the other PBOs do. I'm surprised that you don't know whether or not ESPO have a commitment to social value. It's an organisation which is owned by the member local authorities, which is not uncommon, but you would think that such an organisation would have explicit ESG goals.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker?
Councillor Corey, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Further to Councillor Baxter's questions, this is a scrutiny committee. We are on the committee to scrutinise, but we are being denied the opportunity and being asked to vote on, at best, trust, at worst, a lack of transparency on which to take informed votes. When we ask for data, can we have it? And I put that question to Councillor Gibson, and I would like Councillor Gibson to answer that. Thank you.
You want to come on to that one?
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to listen, not here to answer your questions.
Thank you. Do you have another speaker?
Councillor Dyer next, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Let's get my notes. Just the social value element, that was one of my questions, and thank you for asking that, Matt. I'm disappointed with your response, Stuart. So you're going to come back to us? When, sorry, are you going to come back to the committee with that information?
Can I remind councillors to please address questions through the chair? Stuart, would you like to come back on that one?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So there is a social value element on ESPO's website, so we can send the link to you. But like I said before, in terms of the social value, ESPO do make a lot of commitments like supporting local businesses and supply chains, creating opportunities for local employment, training and apprenticeships. So it's something we can manage during the course of this contract in terms of holding them to account on their social value commitments.
Thank you, Chairman, and apologies for not addressing my question through you. Thank you for that response. It's disappointing. You know, there's no reference to it at all within the report. And I know an emphasis from Councillor Kelly, he certainly made reference to social value in contracts and that being a priority. On that note then, Chairman, would you be able to provide the committee with any information as to social value within the current ESPO contract? What has this council benefited from in the current contract in respect to social value, rather than just telling us to look at a website? Thank you, Chairman. I've got some more, but we'll keep it on that.
Thank you. So again, that's something that we'll speak to ESPO about and give you a sort of an overview as to what social value elements they've included within the current contract arrangement.
So the answer, Chairman, to committee today, we don't know what social value LCC has benefited from in respect to the ESPO contract. Is that the answer that we're being given today, Chairman? We don't know. Does anybody else know of any benefit from the ESPO contract? If you can step in, Michelle, that would be welcome, I'm sure. Thank you, Chairman.
So I have literally just pulled up the ESPO front page. It gives commitment to including social value through the current legislation, through all of its frameworks, and we are operating on a framework contract here. The specific elements of social value that it refers to is supporting local business and supply chain, creating opportunities for local employment, training and apprenticeships, using sustainable products and materials, and reducing impact on the environment. So they are the specific social value elements that they are committing to in all of their framework contracts, of which this is one. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Chairman.
And that's something, the delivery of is something that Stuart's obviously mentioned that we monitor through the contract management through the life of the contract.
Thank you, Chairman. It's helpful, but I've now asked the question, how specifically have we benefited? And you've just mentioned there, Michelle, it's monitored through the contract management social value. I've just asked the question, within the current ESPO contract, how has LCC benefited from social value? I haven't had an answer. But now you're telling me it's monitored. So who in this room, out of all the officers sat there, monitors that and can actually tell committee how has LCC benefited from social value specifically in the current contract, if it's being monitored as you've just said?
So if you want information about the specific gas contract, I'm sure officers can come back to you specifically on that. We have a number of ESPO contracts across the council supplying various different goods and services. So they'll be managed through the different routes that we buy through ESPO. So there'll be different contracts, different frameworks that we use for different goods. Clearly, this is just talking about and scrutinising the gas contract, and I'm sure officers can come back on the specifics of how that contract's managed.
Thank you, Michelle. Did you have?
Thank you, Chair. I think just given the emphasis that the administration has put on social value, it's disappointing that officers have come to this committee with a £4 or £5 million contract. There's no mention of social value within the report, and when asked how we've benefited from the current contract, the answer at committee is, we don't know, we'll email you after committee. That's disappointing, Chairman, and it's not good enough, quite frankly. But moving on, just further on within the report, you mentioned that there is a £23,000 administration fee that we pay to ESPO as part of this contract to manage this. Further down, it says that that's offset through the ESPO rebate mechanism. Elsewhere within the report, it does state the council is expected to receive a rebate on spend through ESPO over the contract term. And then in brackets, it says that the current rebate over a 4-year period is in the region of £16,000. The report doesn't mention what level of rebate are we expecting in this new contract. Is that going to be at a similar level, or will it be a reduced level of rebates? I don't think there's any mention of that within the report. Thank you, Chairman.
So the rebate will be dependent on the quantity of gas that we buy. So it's variable across the contract. So we've put the past contracts rebates in there as an indicative value. So we won't know until we start moving through the new contract, depending on the volume that we buy. It's linked to volume.
But thank you, Chairman. But is it as a percentage of volume? Is it still, or if we use exactly the same amount of gas, which I know we're not going to do, over the next contract as we are in the current contract, will it be £16,000 or will it be more or less? Do we know whether it's on the same terms as the previous contract?
It's the same terms.
It's exactly the same terms.
Yeah.
And then, Chairman, just finally, and Councillor Baxter, I still don't think he's had an answer, by the way, to all of his questions, but he's old enough to look after himself. But just one of the points mentioned in response to Councillor Baxter was the commercially sensitive element of the report and that not coming to committee because it's commercially sensitive. Again, from a transparency point of view, Chairman, why on earth isn't this just a restricted item in Part B so that committee can see all of the information rather than just being given some woolly assurances and say, we can't tell you, we can't answer your question, Councillor Baxter, because that's restricted. I don't think the committee is getting as much information here as it should do to consider this decision.
Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, so to come back to some of my questions, picking up on something that Marie said, if we change our portfolio because we turn into a different authority or it's picked up, you're absolutely sure that we can change the number of buildings or the total consumption by any amount. When I've been involved in these contracts before, there's been a 10% tolerance because they expect that you're going to lose a school here and gain something else over there. But you're saying that we could reduce the estate by 75% and there would be no financial penalty. Well, that sounds like a very unusual, but if it's a deal, it's a deal. You didn't answer what conversations have taken place with other PBOs.
Thank you. Stuart?
Yeah, so we've been given assurance by ESPO that we can change the numbers of properties on the estate within the contract. As mentioned earlier, that will also be included as a clause within the contract. As mentioned earlier, some of those properties may go on to district councils which are currently utilising ESPO as well. So there is that flexibility to change the sites within the contract.
And what conversations have taken place with other PBOs?
I don't know the exact conversations that have been had, but the procurement team have spoken to the PBOs and obtained the commercial information that has filtered into this report.
Sorry, you're taking responsibility for this report and you don't know what conversations have taken place with alternative suppliers. How can you be assured that ESPO, as it says on page 19, it says, there is no clear advantage to the council in moving away from the current arrangement. I can tell you confidently that GCA or YPO or Laser or anyone else would all say, actually, there are many clear advantages to swapping away from ESPO or swapping from any PBO to any other PBO. I can't believe that they haven't got someone in the room that has sat down with YPO or anyone else to say, all right, what have you got? What's your opinion of ESPO? It sounds to me like ESPO are telling you that ESPO are the best people for the job, as they have for the last 25 years. I also asked about proactive energy management and exception reporting. Is under this ESPO framework that we're going into, have we been promised proactive energy management? Have we been promised an audit of meters annually? Have we been offered exception reporting? Is it a bureau service or is it a fully managed service?
Thank you. I'll just remind councillors to address questions through the chair again. Stuart or Mary?
Okay, so with regards to the other PBOs, there were 3 other PBOs considered and benchmarked. Now, the offer isn't identical to ESPO. There are some differences in the offer. So, therefore, it's been benchmarked. ESPO are at the lower end of that when we did the benchmarking in terms of costs. So, with regards to your question around...
Just to keep it neat, when you were benchmarking the other PBOs, how did that work?
So the offer from each of the other PBOs was considered, and then we've mapped them across each other to understand financially which one was the best offer for us.
So why aren't we being presented with the evidence that that benchmarking has taken place? What did that benchmarking look like? Why aren't we being told these are the differences in price, these are the differences in service, and therefore this is ESPO?
We've put other routes to procurement in there as well, so there were other routes to procurement considered as well. So there was an awful lot of work went into considering which was the best route, and ESPO came out as the more favourable route from a cost and risk perspective.
Chair, it may be, but there's no evidence in this pack that that's ever happened.
Could we be provided the evidence of any additional quotes from any other? 'Cause it's okay to say ESPO is the favourable way to go, but obviously you're saying to us, trust us, we know better. I don't understand why this is going to scrutiny without any quotes, especially from private brokers as well. I mean, for me, brokers have suggested to me that better pricing structures can be put in place when these contracts are negotiated a year in advance. I don't understand why it's coming to committee this late. It almost seems to be the fact that you don't want to go down the private route for some reason, and ESPO is the route which you've chosen. And my main question really is, ESPO takes £93,000 a year over the 4-year period of the contract, and obviously it gives some of that money back, doesn't it? Instead of a pence per kilowatt hour commission, which private brokers take. Is this the only money which ESPO take? Is it just the £93,000, or is there anything else that they take?
This is what they charge us for the management of the service provision. Just on the point on the brokers that you've just mentioned, so if we did go down, so gas procurement of this scale isn't comparable to single quotes, so pricing depends on the volume, timing and purchasing strategy. Any broker route would require a full competitive tender process. The ESPO framework is already a pre-competed route, giving us access to aggregated buying power and specialist expertise.
This special expertise which you're talking about, which the paper seems to boast that only ESPO can do these and other practices can't do that, it appears to suggest that the services provided through ESPO are unique to that framework arrangement. And in practice, many professional private energy brokers and consultants offer comparable services, including procurement, strategy and marketing, time and advice, tender management and supply engagement, contract placement and administration, risk management and forward purchasing support, consumption analysis and reporting, invoice validation and dispute resolution, ongoing account management through the contract term. Is there anything else which ESPO do above that, which is why you are deciding to go with that? Because in my eyes, if ESPO only take the £93,000 as a charge for their services, surely it should be the cheapest on the market by far. And therefore, if it is the cheapest, you should be able to ring up a broker and not be able to get beaten with those quotes. Now, I've managed to ring about 5 up, and all 5 of them have managed to beat the ESPO quote. So there's some money here, which I feel as though is, I don't know, there's something hidden in this. So if you could clarify that for me, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, so the value of this contract is between 3 to 3.5 million that we've already discussed. So this would need to go through a full procurement, public sector procurement exercise if we're going to go down the broker route. So it wouldn't be comparable to look at single individual quotes in this instance. We would have to undertake a full procurement exercise if we're going to go down the broker route.
I mean, it took me about 4.5 minutes to ring one broker up and get a quote. And I've got the numbers here. And he was very open with me as well. He told me how much commission he would make per kilowatt if it was a 2 pence per commission, over the amount of millions of kilowatt per hour it was generating. My next question is, what other buildings are part of this deal? I know Councillor Robinson mentioned about some of the district councils will be coming over soon. For some reason, this seems to be a 4-year contract instead of a 3-year contract. Is there any reason why? Because again, brokers tend to say you get more competitive prices over a 3-year contract over a 4. And obviously, if we're going through LGR and we're going to be getting a lot more corporate properties coming our way, obviously you want to kind of bundle them together to get an even better deal. At the moment, it's just corporate property, which I see. I'm wondering why we don't put schools under this as well, and also buildings like this, so we get even more clout and even cheaper deal.
Can I take that? So schools are responsible for their own budgets, and therefore they procure their own energy. The majority of our schools, as mentioned, are in the ESPO agreement themselves directly. And when we talk about the corporate property, we talk about the LCC corporate property portfolio. So that includes this building, it includes all of our buildings. So it is the entirety of our estate this covers, with the exception of the schools.
Can I request that for the energy contract, it comes a year in advance, so we have plenty of time to find quotes, competitive quotes? Because to be honest, the paper seems to be very biased and in favour of ESPO, and I think there are options on there, but I do think we need the quotes. Otherwise, you know, it's like going into a car showroom and asking what the price is, and then going, "Don't worry, we'll give you the best price." And it's like, well, what is that price? Well, don't trust us. It's the best price. We need to know what the figures are. And yeah, even if it's on a different kind of paper, a hidden paper, so only we know, we need to, because otherwise I don't understand what we're debating. We're trusting you with it, if that makes sense.
Okay. If it's in agreement with the chairman and the committee, I can take this away. I can bring it back as a restricted paper for the next scrutiny committee with that detail in there. We can overlay the benchmarking activities that we've done into the paper, if that would give you more certainty with your scrutiny.
Just quick nods, would that satisfy?
Yeah, I think that would help massively. And you know, I'm not against the ESPO contract at all, but I want to be proved. I want to be told this is why. You know, and if it's the cheapest contract and it does all these things and it's going to be cost effective, fair enough, I'll be in favour of it. But just saying, trust us, it's the cheapest way or it's the best way, isn't quite enough. So, Councillor Baxter.
Just as a point of information, this paper is not talking about buying the gas. It's about buying the services of the people who will buy the gas. So, with that in mind. Each compliant framework, of which ESPO is one, will have a number of suppliers on the list. Could I just ask how many gas suppliers are on the list? So when they go out to the market asking, here's Lincolnshire's energy requirement, or here's Lincolnshire's gas supply requirement, how many actual suppliers do they go to?
I'd need to come back. We don't have that level of information. So we don't have that. It depends who's in the market and who's selling the gas. So I need to come back to you.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. If it's a compliant framework, then they will have a list of suppliers who are ready to put in bids. I'm astonished that, Chair, I'm astonished that we don't know how many suppliers are on that list, because I'm sure that ESPO or any other PBO would be able to tell you immediately that they've got 3 or 6 or 2.
That information could come in that restricted report you were talking about, though, couldn't it?
Yes, absolutely,
yeah.
yes.
So hopefully that happens. I think Councillor Corey we had a few people as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There is obvious lack of confidence in the data presented, and cross-chamber concern on the thinness and lack of transparency in this report. Chairman, you're responsible in your capacity as Chairman for the running of this committee and for the reports presented. Do we have your assurance that future reports we are being asked to scrutinise will give us all the information we need and to make decisions or to vote on behalf of our communities? Because right now we've heard since this meeting started that there is a genuine concern that we are not being given all the information we need to make informed votes. It's not the first time it's happened. So, as chairman, do we have your assurance?
Yes, absolutely. But as well, I see the reports only a few days before everybody else gets the reports. So not that much can...
So are you saying then that you had no concerns over the lack of transparency and lack of data?
No,
and
no,
that
I
you're
do have
confident
concerns and I bring it up.
that you can make an informed decision and you have no concerns based on everything you've heard, including from your colleague sitting next to you?
It's not in my gift. Yeah, it's not in my gift to change an executive report.
Well, you can surely. I mean,
trust me, I bring a lot of things up in the meetings beforehand that come into.
And apologies for this, but we've heard from the Councillor Gibson when I put a question directly to him, and he said only a few moments ago, "I'm not here to answer questions. I'm just here to listen." You're not responsible. He's not going to answer any questions on behalf of our communities and the people we represent. Who is?
Councillor Gibson, do you want to come in on that?
Sorry, Chairman. I know other members are obviously desperate to make political points and get stuff ready for their YouTube later, I'm sure. If you want to pull the paper, as suggested, and add in detail that you want, that is more than acceptable. No problems with that. That's what scrutiny's for. If you just want to make political points, then what's the point?
Thank you. So who do we have next?
Councillor Arundel, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to the officers. I think they've done a great job. As in business myself, I procure electricity for 40-odd properties, and with a budget of about 200,000 a year. It's extremely complicated. It's not just a question of ringing up a broker and getting a few quotes. It's a tough job, so I think they do have a hard job to try and get that, and I think they have to balance the people that they know to a lot of other people out there that possibly have a lot of hidden things in their contracts. So I get where they're coming from. However, on my properties, I basically have a smart meter on every single one, and I do a statement of what they've used every year, and then basically the broker takes that away and shops around and tells me what it's going to cost me with British Gas, what it's going to cost me with U Energy, what it's going to cost me with Gazprom. And then we look to see, because some will fix rates for 3 years, but they'll be very cheaper, but their standing charge is a lot higher. So there's an awful lot of complication in doing it. So if the current contractor is trusted and they've had a very good service from them, I can see why they want to keep that relationship, because the market is very, very complicated and they could cause a further mistake down the line. However, I do agree with Mr. Baxter, and I do agree with the fellow colleagues and yourself, Mr. Robinson, that we need to see a little bit more data. The figures would be great if we could see the list of the properties, what they're using per year, are they on smart meters, and like Mr. Baxter says, have they got quotes from other energy suppliers, and what were them quotes? So at least we could look at some data, because I think figures without data is not really something we can look at.
I think the point about the daily standing charge is quite important as well. Because of the amount of energy which is generated, I presume that ESPO would have a higher daily standing charge and a lower per kilowatt hour cost. Is that right, to save costs?
So the standing charges were included within the pricing within the report. So they're included there. But
there's just one figure though, isn't there? It's not actually cut down into how much is spent per kilowatt hour and the daily standing charges. Ideally, daily standing charges per office would be better, wouldn't it, rather than just a one blanket. This is how much it costs for the whole year. I think it needs to be broken down.
Wanting the breakdown, yeah, that could be provided
if
in an
that's
additional
possible.
report.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Dyer, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the Deputy Leader of the Council has got some goal to come to this committee, and the only time he ever comments is when he accuses members of the committee of being political. Being political, Rob, would be me saying,
through the chair, please.
the administration were elected last year on a pack of lies and they've delivered on nothing. That would be being political, Councillor Gibson. I don't think anybody has made a political comment today
Councillor
at all.
Dyer,
But
if this
just,
isn't a
no,
proper
because
point.
we've been accused, Chairman. I'm not on my soapbox. You're the
Can we
one.
If you want to
Can we have some order?
scrutinise, bring the
we
paperwork
are.
back.
We
All you
are.
want to do is slag off my officers and cause an issue, and I won't.
Chairman, Chairman, there is absolutely no need for us to be accused of being political in this committee.
I'm going to come back to you after, can I?
Okay.
'Cause I think you've worked yourself up a bit, and it's... come on.
Councillor Dyer, should you have something to say? Thank you.
Yes, with all the options, I would have liked to seen each option just as big as the others with information, which I think we can see by those options which one that you prefer. I would rather have all the others and the aspects of what they've quoted against what you're recommending.
I think, Chair, if it's okay with you, I think we've agreed that there's more information needed in terms of some of the benchmarking and other information that was assessed as part of the process for making the recommendation that we have. If you're in agreement, we'll bring the paper back as a confidential paper with some of the information that we're able to provide to
Yeah, I think
help with
that's
the
fair.
scrutiny process, if that's okay with members.
Councillor Corey, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm really happy for that, Michelle. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Yep.
Okay, Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just wanted to touch again on about the impacts of LGR with the fact. So obviously South Kesteven have just had a look. So they re-procured in April 24, and then obviously some of so East Lindsey, North Kesteven, they're looking at re-procuring sort of at the same time as us. What is their sort of feeling about this as well? Obviously South Kesteven have already sort of secured and seem trusted in this. Have you got sort of comments from the leadership about sort of where they're going with re-procuring them as well, just to make sure that we're on the same page if LGR happens?
Michelle, do you want me to pick that up?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. So Laura's actually working with the districts on the commercial work stream for LGR, so I'm sure Laura can comment.
Yeah, so pre-decision, the work's primarily focused on amalgamation of contract registers and pipelines. We're aware of where we've got contracts that are similar or similar types of contracts coming up for renewal at the same time. We're currently going through the process of prioritising the most essential, obviously some of our core statutory services that we absolutely need to deal with, potentially pre-decision, well, pre-vesting day, sorry. Others, we're looking at where we might have extensions in place and are able to then manage those in a much more effective way. So that information is all being gathered and looked at and analysed. We are waiting for a decision day to then start to deal with those as required and taking up extension provisions where we might need to, but where we can obviously buy together and get better efficiencies as a result, that's the approach we're taking. So yeah, it is all being worked on and kind of will be potentially coming back to this committee for future decisions around what LGR model looks like anyway.
Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't remember which officer just said it, but I think we've got to that point now, I think, where everybody's kind of in agreement. We need more information that yourself, Councillor Rundle and opposition councillor have all requested. So I think, Chairman, if we could, I'd like to recommend that we defer this item till the next committee meeting, till we get the information that we requested around the figures and also the additional information around the social value.
Councillor Baxter, to add anything?
Yeah, I think you and Councillor Bowles have just proposed very much the same thing, so I'd like to second whichever one makes it through, except for 2 points. One is, can we be clear of the timescale on this? Because there will be a date beyond which there's no return, that we need to have something in place so that we've got gas delivered to the portfolio. The second issue is picking up on LGR. within the report that comes back next time, could we have an explanation of why we're going for a contract that goes through to 2031? Is it not possible just to extend it for a year so that we can let the new authority worry about it?
Thanks. I'll just come back to Councillor Bowles' point because I was just getting a bit of advice. Can we actually defer this item because it's a decision for the 14th of July? Is that even possible?
We'd have to take it out of that. We'd have to take it out of executive on the 14th of July and put it into the September one because there's no executive in.
And what would be the consequence, Chair?
We are very close to needing to sign an agreement, so that would be, we would be okay at that, but that would be the last point really.
Okay, I'm not entirely moved on deferring it, but I do hope it comes back. And should we answer, Councillor?
I'll formally propose that we defer it, Chair, for the additional the two sets of additional information that I've requested.
Councillor Robinson, are you seconding or are you adding?
I just wanted to suggest if we necessarily needed an extraordinary meeting, would that be another option?
There is another meeting in July. We can make arrangements for the report, if needs be, to come back to this committee, but I will have to liaise with officers outside this meeting to look at sequencing of events and make sure that we get all activities that need to proceed the decision-making process agreed. Thank you.
Would that be too late, or would that be okay? Because obviously I presume that the longer you leave it, the closer, the worse deal you get in terms of procurement.
It just means we can't start the process as early as we'd like to. So yes, I can work with Chiara to work on some dates.
May I also come back to clarify that what the committee is going to be doing at the end of this debate is suggest a proposal. If you suggest to defer it, this is what you will be voting on. If that is carried, that will be your suggestion to the executive that is going to take place on the 14th, that they postpone consideration for the next executive meeting, which is in September. I just wanted to be very clear with you about this. Thank you.
So it's not technically 2 votes, it will just be the 1.
This committee is not a decision-making body. All I'm trying to clarify here is that by suggesting it and agreeing it as members of this committee, this doesn't automatically remove it from the list of items to be considered at the executive meeting on the 14th of July. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that proposal then? Councillor Daish. And we will move, so all in favour.
Apologies, Chairman. I think it was seconded by Councillor Baxter.
Okay, seconded
previously.
by Councillor Baxter. Fair enough. All in favour then? Those against? It's unanimous. All right. Thank you very much. Do we have more speakers?
Councillor Dyer, your name's on the list. Would you like
No,
to?
all I was going to ask, Chairman, was whether the deferral would also mean the executive decision was going to be deferred. That was my question. So you've answered that.
Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
Spot on. Okay. I think we can move on to
Does the feedback go to the executive of what we've said as well automatically? Because obviously we didn't vote on that, did we?
So yes, so what you have voted on at the moment is that the committee has considered the contents of the report that was due to be submitted to the executive for consideration on the 14th of July, and the committee's views are that the report and the decision is, well, the decision is deferred until the report contains more information that the members would like to see and that they would like the executive to be able to see and scrutinise before they reach an agreement about and a decision as a result to that. So to summarise, all the comments from today's debate that have led you members to making this referral to the executive for a deferral have been captured and will be shared and passed on to the executive as per the normal process. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the vote from the report then. Don't need to do anything else. Next item. Oh, lovely. Okay, State of the County, item number 6, the State of the County, the Lincolnshire Economy 2026. This scrutiny report can be found on pages 29 to 82 of the agenda pack. The report invites the committee to consider this report, and members of the committee are invited to make comments on the analysis and narrative included in the State of the County dashboard to make it relevant and useful to the committee. 2, to receive an annual update to this dashboard, and 3, advise if a member workshop focusing on specific areas of data interest is required. The report will be presented by Justin Brown, the Assistant Director for Growth. Over to you, Justin.
Chairman, thank you. And I guess for any scrutiny committee, it has a number of roles, one of which is to comment on decisions, and one is to help to develop policy. And this particular paper is very much the start of a process of helping to develop policy and activity as we move forward. So it's very much to give you an overview of some of the statistics which we intend to use to shape activity, shape policy, etc. Sitting behind me are Mandy and Adam, who've done a lot of the work on this paper, and I do apologise if I'd realised how hot it was going to be in here. I probably wouldn't have brought you lots of statistics today, but there we go. So the purpose, as I say, is to help to shape policy, but it also is going to provide a backcloth towards some of the performance management information as we move forwards. So we're proposing a number of performance indicators later in the meeting, and they're the sort of what are we doing to date. The report that I present and that I propose we do once a year gives you a bit more of the so what impact have these things had. Next slide, please, Tom. Thank you. So a little bit about the structural issues relating to the economy. So first of all, if you look at the graph with typically England is in pink and Lincolnshire in green, we already are seeing significant growth in productivity in the county. However, similar levels of growth in England, and at times just stretching and creating more of a gap between the two. So that continues to be a significant challenge to our economy. Tom. Thank you. So second slide, another structural issue, and I'm running through this very quickly. There are about 250 pages in a report that we would propose. If you would like to delve into more detail, we will run a session for you, which will probably last around 2 hours. So I'm just giving you a headline at the moment. But one of the things that I know you've been aware of and asked us about in the past is deprivation and the impact on jobs, communities, and cost of living in specific areas. The research we've done has uncovered something really quite interesting, which is that typically the narrative around deprivation is a coastal narrative. But if you look in the middle of the screen, the number of people living in the top 3 deciles, top 30% of deprivation areas in Lincolnshire is 135,000 in urban areas, 45,000 in rural, 53,000 in coastal. So I think there's a big job for us to do in telling the Lincolnshire story about recognising the difference between coastal, urban and rural areas, and explaining to government decision makers that deprivation occurs in all of those. Next one, please, Tom. We often talk about apprenticeships. We often talk about encouraging more apprenticeships, and I do believe that it is right to encourage more apprenticeships, and we will be bringing some suggestions on how we help more young people gain work experience to a meeting in a couple of meetings' time, I think it is. But what is interesting, look, is that per 100,000 of the population, Lincolnshire actually has more apprenticeships, more people participating in apprenticeships than the national average. So that's something quite positive and something to build on. Tom. But a concern here. So we look at foreign-owned businesses because they are some of our biggest investors, biggest exporters. They often commit significantly to their workforce. And as you can see, the UK, the England amount of investment has increased substantially. The Lincolnshire one will of course be a less smooth line because there are fewer businesses than at a national level, but nonetheless we can see 2022 a particular drop-off in terms of foreign investment. And if you think about cost of living issues, if you think about economic challenges, you can see how that's happened very strongly to Lincolnshire's foreign investors. Next one. So therefore, what we are going to do is to develop a number of solutions which tackle those problems. A couple just to pick out very quickly. Infrastructure is critical to productivity, so that's important. And despite the point which is positive about apprenticeships, we do see some challenges around graduate retention, and that might be an area that we wish to consider. Next section, please, Tom. Thank you. So unemployment, we are, as always, tracking below UK and national averages. However, we do have some pockets of long-term unemployment, particularly 16 to 25-year-olds, particularly 55 plus, and that becomes a challenge to us that could become a significant drag on the economy. Next one. Housing supply, when I saw this data, it really did interest me, given how important the housing market is to its relationship with the economy. And what we can see is a really significant downtick, again, from about 2022 onwards. So it follows that productivity and that investment dip that we saw earlier. I recognise the County Council's not a housing authority, but in terms of our strategic investment in infrastructure, some of that data helps us to consider priorities and locations and so on. Next one. And in terms of our business community, we're quite stable. You can see that the Lincolnshire bars show that the number of businesses in Lincolnshire who remain trading after 5 years is greater than the England average. That is extremely positive, but I do flag up that stability often may not mean dynamism, may not mean extra funding into the business community, extra innovation, etc. So it's an interesting challenge for us to recognise and to do something about. Next one. So again, a set of actions that we would propose to move forward with, particularly around tackling some of that long-term unemployment through skills and training measures, but also looking at the wider factors of employment, and particularly around targeting some of our investment and lobbying to ensure that the major investors in the county and major house builders and so on are able to operate in a successful market. Final section then, please, Tom. So, population, we knew this, didn't we? But our age 65 plus is growing faster than England average. And I guess if I look back at the issue of productivity, if we actually have few people of working age and we have productivity which is holding behind, if we can solve that skills issue within the labour market, it raises our productivity and it recognises that our age profile across the economy is one which is agnostic, I suppose, as opposed to being a drag. Next one. Salary levels remain lower than the England average. Of course they do, because of the productivity gap, because of some of the issues around unemployment I've spoken about. So that is something which we see as a significant challenge in terms of cost of living, but it is also something that we recognise that by helping businesses to invest and grow, that the salary levels will rise. Next one. And in terms of qualification levels, you can see that the left-hand column shows significant growth in qualification levels at level 3, which is particularly positive. But again, we're not growing quite as fast as England. And in the bottom, you can see that the number of residents with no qualifications continues to be greater than the England average. So that employment and skills issue is very, very important. There are a number of things we can do as a county council, and a number of things we can do in partnerships with the learning community, with the combined authority, etc. Next one. So that essentially gives us a little bit of an indication that we should be focusing around tackling employment and skills, that we should be tackling benefiting from some of our higher level skills by developing innovation activity, and that we have certain sectors where there are strengths and that we can really benefit from. So that was a quick dance through what, as I say, is 200 plus pages of data, and we'd be happy to take you through everything in a lot more detail at a separate session. But hopefully what it gives you is a bit of a background which helps to say, okay, that's the data, and that's why some of this activity is going to be brought forward. That's why some of these policies will develop, and I hope you find it useful.
Thank you, Justin. Absolutely excellent report. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Corey, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for your report, Justin. No real questions, you'll be relieved to hear. It's just an observation. On the issue that you raised with age profiles and productivity and the increasing plus 65 year demographic that I am racing towards at great speed. Oh, yes, I am. No, I know. That demographic doesn't in and of itself represent a detriment, but it is a challenge, and I know that this is one that you're all across, but I just wanted to mention it. But you talked about innovation, and it provides it when you identify it, and the stats you put up there were very illuminating. Thank you very much. So what focus of support then are you and your team putting into that growing demographic to make sure that they are still economically engaged, they are engaged not just in being economically active, but in also with healthy lifestyle choices and making sure that they have access to work and access to transport. So can you just tell us something a little bit how you're working across the public sector and the third sector to make sure that growing demographic is a benefit to us and not a detriment? Thank you.
So I'd highlight two particular things that we do. The first one is that the County Council is a member of, I'm going to get the name a little bit wrong, but the Ageing Better Partnership, which is a national organisation which has piloted activity in 3 areas, one of which was East Lindsey. I think one was Leeds, and I don't remember what the third one was. And we got together a group of small business owners with the Ageing Better organisation to explore the sort of things that small business owners might do to retain or attract their older workforce. And the definition of older was 55 plus, so I mean, I know. But I guess what was quite interesting actually was that the employers were pretty relaxed about people's ages. What they wanted to understand though was if something went wrong into the future, what support would they have? And we provided a toolbox to help them to understand the different things they could do. The other thing that we continue to do is work across the council, particularly with adult social care, to look at those care businesses who may innovate and look at how we can support them. And I'm sure many people in the room like me have personal examples of where the care system has developed some really strong innovation, but also some examples of where things could be slicker. And I guess we're working with adult care to carry that out.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have any other speakers?
Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you, and thank you for that, Justin. Personally, I think a wider session for members would be beneficial on that. So with that in mind, I have got a question, and the short version answer would be fine. So you highlighted what is referred to as a triple geography challenge around the urban, coastal and rural deprivations. Obviously, the required interventions for that are going to be significantly different in those areas. So could you just give me some sort of headlines on how the council is looking to address those, given the very different situations?
Gainsborough Trinity for the Cup. All right. We run a programme called Connect to Work, and we could have, and it's all about helping long-term unemployed people back into the labour market. We could have simply done one contract which went out to everybody, but what we did is change some of the payment regimes so that the harder to tackle communities, the harder to tackle locations would receive a greater output payment. That's meant that the providers have focused more on those areas with greater disadvantage.
Councillor Baxter, you have a question, please. Thank you.
It is a question, but I find this report really quite refreshing. It's lots of detail, lots of data, and there's no surprises in it. I don't think, or not many, and so it's encouraging to have a report that shows a Lincolnshire that is recognisable and also points out some of the issues that we face. I guess the next bit, so within the report you've said you've got the what and the so what. I guess I'm looking for the what are we going to do about it, or what next? My question is about how the work that we're doing dovetails with the mayoral authority. There's an awful lot of stuff in here on housing, on growth, on foreign investment and so on that the mayor talks about a lot. So what are we doing to make sure that there's collaboration and not duplication?
So in terms of the what next, we're looking to develop this into a strategy which responds to the issues. And we'll bring that here, of course, for debate and so on. But there will be other activity taking place in advance of the strategy being developed. So I encourage you just to keep this slide pack to hand. In terms of alignment with the mayor, on a very operational level, we have monthly meetings with the team to explore some of the issues that are raised and to look at how and who is best to take certain things forward. We also have an operational meeting of the directors of economy from all of the district councils and the county council and the combined authority to seek to align activity in that way. At a strategic level, the leader of the council and the mayor and relevant portfolio holders meet on a regular basis, again with the same aim of saying, as we share a common story for Lincolnshire, what is the best way of getting our message out to gain more investment, and what is our best way of delivering services? And we'll each step in and out of those according to what's best and most appropriate at the right time.
Chair, my worry with the relationship with the mayoral authority is that there's 3 constituent authorities within the mayoral authority, and ours is 3 or 4 times as big as the other 2. So North and North East Lincolnshire are, they've kind of got equal status, even though they are minnows compared to our bigger fish. When I look at the investment prospectus as presented on the Invest Lincolnshire website, an awful lot of the investment opportunities seem to be in North East Lincolnshire. Good for them. I'm pleased that they've got that investment. But how are we pushing back? How can we be sure that when the money arrives from government, it's going to be divvied up fairly and not just a third of the money to each of the authorities?
So, of course, there's a significant governance system in place within the Combined Authority to look at how they invest their funding, which has members of the constituent authorities and the non-constituent as well. In terms of determining ways forward, for example, with the Local Growth Fund, which I briefly mentioned last time, the Combined Authority has established a little working group of senior officers from the constituent authorities to work through and ensure that the right objectives are made. In terms of investment sites, I think it's really important to recognise that sites which are for significant private sector investment will typically be in areas which have a particular economic advantage. So you and I have spoken before about the opportunities which arise from being alongside the A1 for South Kesteven as an example. So the brochure that you've mentioned and the sites that you've mentioned largely but not perfectly maps across to areas of particular economic advantage, clusters of energy businesses around North East Lincolnshire as an example. That would be different to investing in somewhere with a different set of economics. An example might be Skegness, for example, where you would invest for a different purpose, which is not to be part of an investment prospectus seeking foreign international investment because they don't have the same locational advantages, but you would look at investing in somewhere like Skegness rather more for helping to generate jobs and income for people in that area. So I think it's important for that investment prospectus to be seen in that context of it's about economic advantage as opposed to everything.
Councillor.
Councillor Doesch, please.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed the report. Thought it was very good, well presented. Really pleased. Couple of questions. I believe that the transport situation is the Mayor's office is handed back for a year transport and vehicles, etc., taxis, whatever, and buses. My second question would be further education. It says that it's been difficult to retain the people that are highly qualified in the county. If they are going, we need to know why they're going. Is it because they can make more money in a different area, or is it because the attraction of working in Lincolnshire is not as great?
So yeah, the Combined Authority has a strategy lead around transport investment. However, they are using ever such a lot of data which over the past few years we have produced. So Sam and Vanessa behind me have both provided significant information and policy steers because Lincolnshire has existed for a long time and the Combined Authority is a relatively new organisation. In terms of FE and particularly leavers, I think your point about attractiveness is really important. Certainly most people who are in their early 20s or late teens want to do something different. They want to see the world and things like that. And there is a shift around the country of people leaving certain areas and others coming into areas and so on. We will unpack that further in a paper that we're bringing in terms of youth opportunities and potentially internships and so on, which Samantha behind me will be bringing, I think, to the next meeting or the one after, and we'll have a bit more data for you then. But it's absolutely, we hear what you say about until we understand the motivations of young people, we can't really develop solutions.
Thank you.
Councillor Rundle, please.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, for this report. It's really refreshing to see, and obviously a lot of hard work's gone into it. Just on the last page, you've got attract new investment, people and opportunities. Third one down, it says clear investment offer and a designated sites and zones. Do you have any figures, pounds, pence, to the clear investment offer or the money you're working with that you'll be able to give to these businesses or invest to help them start or whatever?
So We are bringing a paper on investment to, I think it's the next meeting. Again, Samantha will be leading that. But in the very detailed information in the 200-page bit I've been describing to you, there's some very helpful information which shows the type of investments that are typically made in Lincolnshire, who they're by, which sectors, etc. So we will bring that into the data for you. And I think one thing that's really important is that we do seek to attract new investment, but we need to recognise that our indigenous businesses are the ones that are here and are making the most investments on a day-to-day basis. Typically within our growth hub, we deal with about 2,500 businesses a year. We're very proud of that, and we certainly hope that we can continue that into the long-term future.
Councillor Daesh, please.
Yeah, just the amount of children that are leaving school and then perhaps are not having a job, is the county council picking those up to give them vocational opportunities and further education, whether it's if there's transport problems, could we supply them to go online to do courses, and basically not let them fall through the net?
So the government produced a report called the Milburn Review about 6-8 weeks ago, which addressed that issue. We have established an officer short-term task and finish group to say, how do we respond to that? What are the things that we do? We met for the first time yesterday. The plan is to make some early doors recommendations to the corporate leadership team in about a fortnight, and for us then to work up some more detail on what we could do better. In the meantime, we already do quite a lot. So we do have 200 or more apprentices within the county council. We use our family hubs as a way of supporting the people. And of course, we've got the careers hub that you've had presentations on into here before, which focuses very much on trying to help the people who've chosen not to take an academic route to find the right job for them. So we have a number of things which are going on. The statistics show us that across the country, it's one of the biggest challenges in the labour market. We need to do more. We need the government to give us more money for it, and that's really what the piece of work will be about.
All right, that's everyone then. Thank you very much for your comments. We will move on to the proposal. I move that the report be received and thank officers for their presentation and assurances provided. I ask that an update to this dashboard be received in 12 months, and based on views raised today, I ask that a member workshop. Are we organising a workshop? No. Councillor Bowles, yeah, we'll do a workshop. I ask that a membership workshop be organised with further focus on understanding and interpreting the data. Finally, I ask that comments raised by members be cascaded for further consideration by relevant officers and the executive member. Can I please see you raise your hands if you agree? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we'll have a 10-minute comfort break. So I'll be back at 11:45. All right. So on to item number 7, the Scrutiny Committee Performance Framework. The pre-decision scrutiny report to the Leader of the Council and the Executive Councillor for Growth and to the Executive Councillor for Community Engagement was published as a supplementary report on the 17th of June. This report invites the Growth Scrutiny Committee to consider a report on the Scrutiny Committee Performance Framework 26-27, which is being presented to the Executive Councillors for a decision between 29th July 2026 and the 3rd of July 2026. All comments from the committee will be reported to the Executive Councillors as part of their consideration of this item. The actions required. The report invites the committee to consider the report and to determine whether the committee supports the recommendations to the Executive Councillors as set out in the report. In the chamber today to discuss the contents of the report and answer our questions, we have Samantha Harrison, the Head of Economic Development, Sam Edwards, Head of Highways, Infrastructure and Laboratory Services, Vanessa Strange, Head of Infrastructure Investment, Mary Marriott, Head of Facilities and Workshop Space Management, Mark Eyre, Head of Strategic Asset Management and Estates, Dave Pennington, Head of Capital Delivery and Professional Services, and Laura Shepherd, Head of Commercial Infrastructure. So who would like to commence? Samantha, should we start with you? Justin?
Yeah, sorry, so this is the paper about indicators 26/7 onwards, isn't it?
I think the agenda item, it came separate, number 7. It's the Scrutiny Performance Framework 26-27. It is the KPIs, isn't it? Yeah, yes. It's the KPIs.
So it is, it's Karen leading.
Yeah, the report pack came separate, so.
My apologies, Chairman. I was looking at the papers online.
No problem.
As you've discussed there, this paper is a report on the Scrutiny Committee Performance Framework. All comments from the committee will be reported to the Executive Councillor for Growth and Exec Councillor for Community Engagement, and we're inviting you to consider the report and, in summary, respond to the corporate performance team who have been undertaking the annual review of key performance indicators, which will be reported to every scrutiny committee. And for us in corporate property, the proposed KPIs, which are new, are detailed within Appendix A. So I'm going to take the report as being read, but highlight the 6 new property performance indicators on page 11, and also with resources for my colleague Laura Shepherd, the 6 on the following page. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do any other officers want to comment on the report? Laura?
Thank you, Chair. So I was just going to do a quick run through for you just of the procurement indicators. So as noted in the paper, these are brand new indicators for 26-27. So the work that's currently being undertaken and what's the focus for Q1 is around ensuring we've got consistency across the authority, that being in definitions, but also to ensure that we're reducing the need for manual processes. I have included an example within the report as to why we need to do that piece of work, so hopefully that is helpful, but if you have got any questions on that, I'm happy to be taking those. The performance indicators for procurement are, as Karen said, in the appendix, and the performance indicators centre on Lincolnshire businesses. So we've been working with Justin's team, Samantha's team and Vanessa's team, and the Lincolnshire business team to develop these indicators and understand how we do that work and how we can improve that work, and how we can connect more Lincolnshire businesses into the work that we do. We'll be monitoring both the Lincolnshire businesses, PI, and the SMEs, PI, on number of those engaged and also spend with SMEs and also Lincolnshire businesses. We've included market engagement activity within the PIs there, and also, I'm sure the committee will be pleased to know, we have got social value requirements within there. This is a piece of work, again, currently in development and ensuring that we have got an aligned framework for Lincolnshire County Council. That is going to be brought back in September to this committee for scrutiny. So the further work that will be undertaken in that, you will be able to have the opportunity to see more detail of. And the final measures really focus on our statutory reporting and what we need to do from a national point of view and a central government point of view. All the work that's happening this year around our procurement measures gives us the opportunity to really give us a baseline for 26-27 with a view that we're able to then put some targets in place for 27-28. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Laura. Do any other officers want to comment? Justin?
Yeah, and just to complete the set in terms of the economy indicators, you'll see they're listed starting at indicator number 69. And I guess this plays back to the previous paper that we've just had. The annual review of the economy will be about impact of activity, and the performance indicators are very much going to give you a quarterly update on how we're getting on in delivering particular services. And the indicators, I hope you'll recognise, fit with the sort of themes that were developed in the previous paper. So they look at the number of businesses that we've supported, the number of people that we've trained. There's an indicator about broadband because of the importance of IT and innovation infrastructure. We've got an indicator about businesses helping us to shape activity, that whole thing about shouting loud about the county, and then a couple of others, one about the number of tenants that we have in our portfolio of properties, and one about the impact of our work on tourism. So a series of indicators there, and we've given you information about previous year's targets, or where they are new work in progress indicators. We've given you a sense of the type of number that we would expect it to be. Thank you.
Any other officers want to make any comments? No? I will move it to open up for debate then. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Dyer first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, can I thank officers, not just those that are present, for actually changing the way that the council operate performance indicators. It's a new way of working, and I think this way is much better than how it's previously been done, and the fact it comes to committee for us to consider is welcome. And thank you as well for going through these, particularly the growth ones, Justin. I appreciated the time that you gave to me to go through these. Just some points, if I may, on the indicators. Let me just get my notes up. Performance indicator 97. It refers to the number of businesses helping us to shape service provision through the Lincolnshire Forum of Agriculture and the Lincolnshire Defence Cluster. If that's the case, would it be possible to have a PI or some form of metric on Team Lincolnshire membership? It would be my first question on that, because again, that's a group of businesses that work with LCC on specific growth matters. And then also, if 175, I believe, is the current target to achieve, if I've read that correctly within the report. What is the current figure? Where are we? I assume we're a little bit away from 175, so it's a bit of a push target. And then just another couple on economy, if I may, and then I'll shut up and I'll come back with the property ones. PI 75, which is the managed workspaces. Whilst it's useful, I still think it misses the point on the total centre occupancy, and I've made that point to you. The current PI 75 is, and I quote, if I can find it, the number of small business tenants provided with accommodation support in the council's portfolio of economic properties. Specifically, it's small business tenants. And I know as a council, that's what we want. We want small businesses in those centres, and it's what it's for. However, not all of the tenants in those centres are small businesses. So I don't think that this figure really paints much of an accurate picture for the performance of those centres. I acknowledge within the rationale there's a reference to occupancy levels at Q4 in 25-26 being at 91%, and I appreciate that. But I'd still, Chairman, wish to have separate PIs for the total occupancy of each of the business centres. So, for instance, Eventus in Market Deeping, that's quite a well-performing one. That always has a high percentage occupancy. But there's others, I can't remember the name of the centre. Is it Mercury House in Gainsborough? That's traditionally struggled. And I think the problem with this data, how it's presented, it's as a committee, it's masking some of the poorer performing business centres. So I think a more open and transparent way, Justin, Chairman, would be to have a breakdown per business centre. And just on that, when you tell me that's a terrible suggestion, Tom, we're not doing that, how will you audit what is a small business? So first of all, can we define what a small business is within this? Because I appreciate that there's more than one definition of that. And then if this is a quarterly target, are we going to have to check with each and every tenant several times a year, 4 times a year, whether they are still a small business? Are we auditing that? So I'm just wondering how much extra work is going into this to be assured that we're just monitoring small businesses. And finally, I'll be doing myself a disservice if I didn't mention this. The administration, time after time, made comment about business centres having to wash their face and being cost neutral. That's been a commitment that's been made several times in this committee. I think something that many of us agree with. Could we have had a performance indicator on these centres washing their face so that we can keep an eye and track whether the ambitions of becoming cost neutral are relieved? They're my growth comments, Chairman.
Thank you. Justin, do you want to answer those?
Yeah, if I forget some of them, I do apologise. So, yeah, I mean, as a general point, as Karen said in the introduction, we're going to take all of the comments away, consider them, see what we can do, see what we would recommend, what we wouldn't, etc. So all comments are noted. A few simple general points. I guess that if I think about the 175 figure, we're probably 110, 120, something like that at the moment. So yes, we're looking to stretch. What we don't want to do is have partnerships which are so big that they lose their focus. So that's a bit of a balance. And that then brings me on to Team Lincolnshire. One of the things I've always been very keen to do all the time that Team Lincolnshire's been part of my world is to focus on outcomes of Team Lincolnshire, not just on the number of paying members, and that's why it currently isn't seen in there. Although, of course, that's something that Samantha and I'll have a chat about. In terms of 75, the performance indicator about our economic property, I do need to be pedantic and remind everyone that it's not just business centres. We do have a number of industrial estates, and we have a number of other properties which we're responsible for. So we're looking at something in the order of, I don't know, about 50 different properties in total, and I'd be reluctant to be providing a quarterly update on each of those. I do recognise the volatility of small businesses and their impact on our business centres, and therefore what I hope you'll have seen as a bit of a change in Samantha's next report on the agenda when she looks at this year's performance information is more detail about specific business centre activity. And I would hope to capture the points that you're asking for in any narrative. I think that was everything, but if not, if I've forgotten something, then apologies, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Justin, for that response. You missed my point on auditing. What is the definition of a small business? How are we checking they're still a small business and they're not a medium-sized business, whatever? And are we going to be doing that for each time these are reported? My other question was on washing face. And then just you mentioned you'd be reluctant to provide performance metrics on a quarterly basis for the managed workspaces. The office units. Why that reluctance? And finally, you just mentioned Team Lincolnshire. You want them to become outcomes based, and that's fair enough. I accept that. That's fine. But then, could we ask as a committee? Could we have an outcomes based PI then that you'd be more comfortable with reporting to committee?
So the reluctance was around 50 So all of the portfolio, not just the business centres. And in terms of outcomes, then that's what I would hope the annual report tells us, as opposed to it being a quarterly PI. The economic data does not move quickly enough, really, for quarterly outcome information. It does move quickly enough for quarterly output information. Other items I think we'll take away and reflect upon as we develop these. I guess there are a number of other reports around things like economic portfolio which we'll use and bring to this scrutiny committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry to go on. Just on that response, Justin, you've still not answered wash face, but also, and it is a key point. And I'm not trying to be pedantic. This definition of small business, what is it, and how are we checking, each quarter that a business is still a small business? Because ideally, Justin, Chairman, I'm told off again. A business goes into the business centres, and then they don't become a small business anymore. They become a medium-sized business, and they want to go off and have their own premises, like many do. But just how are we checking that businesses are still small businesses?
So the head of economic development sitting behind me is very good at checking these things, in that we use a rate of HMRC information and so on. I would not expect to be bringing that sort of data on a quarterly basis. The point which we'll reflect on is that we've put in there a number of small businesses because we wanted to make a shift from it being any tenant who was prepared to pay for occupancy into going back to what our original focus was, which was very much that the economic portfolio is about those small businesses who want to move out of typically their back bedroom, have their own location and grow from there. So it may be that we actually look at the words as opposed to the definition. Washing face, we're bringing a report, I think it's next time on economic portfolio performance. One of the things that we continue to recognise is that the tenancy rates are extremely volatile, and that as a result of some external funding agreements of about 15 to 20 years ago, there are a number of repayments to equity partners, all of which makes the washing of a face very difficult. We continue very clearly to look at keeping costs down, keeping income high, and that will be part of the report that we bring next time.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have another speaker?
Justin, can I just ask a quick question? If you're using HMRC data to figure out what is a small business, obviously you're only tracking limited companies there, aren't you? What about sole trader companies, if you're tracking that? I would have thought the metric of being a small business would be the amount of employees or maybe the turnover. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could come in there. So when we're looking at small businesses, it's up to 50 employees. 50. So a micro is 1 to 10, and then a small business is 11 to 50. So we're capping it at that level.
Brilliant. Is that okay? Yes. Thank you. Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you. Back onto the social value again. So, I'm pleased to see that new indicators there. My question is, and it's for me, the biggest thing about social value is local jobs. I mean, that's the biggest thing you can influence. So with the new PI 50, the percentage of contracts on the council's contract register with a Lincolnshire registered address, i.e. local jobs, I would imagine the vast majority of contracts that we issue them to a principal contractor provider, and then they subcontract out a lot of works. Do we monitor at that level? Do we get the addresses of those subcontractors that will influence that data, or are we missing that whole data set of the reality of where the bulk of the work is being done and carried out? And if we are missing it, how can we capture that within the contracts?
Thank you. So yes, but inconsistently. So we do have that level of detail, for example, in our highways contracts, but we don't have that consistently across the board. And that's the piece of development work that needs to be done to look at how can we centrally gather that without making it an admin heavy piece of work. But we do acknowledge that actually our supply chains a lot of the time are small and micro businesses across the region, and us being able to gather that data and give you a really good picture actually how much spend is locally, how many smaller contracts we have working on our contracts is really key. So yeah, so not something we have consistently at the moment, but the work's in development to get you an accurate picture of that.
Councillor Corey.
Thank you for your report, Justin. Going back to the quarterly reporting, just so I can understand, if you did report quarterly, would this allow us to be more responsive to changing needs? Now, since I wrote my question down, you've partially answered that. So, so would it allow us to be more responsive to changing needs and identify issues early for targeted support? So, if we don't report on quarterly figures, do we still capture data for reference just in case we need to interrogate? And could you explain the difference then between output and outcome in this context? Thank you.
Yeah, apologies, I've slightly misled you. I know, but but we will report quarterly. It's just what we're very keen to do is to report quarterly on stuff that is meaningful on a quarterly basis. The narrative that we'll provide in any quarterly report is where we would raise any exceptions, any issues that we think you might need to be aware of and that you might particularly want us to do something about more quickly. So this isn't going to be an undynamic process. It's going to be one which helps us to say, okay, relating to that thing about businesses, there's this problem happened or this opportunity happened, we'll do something about it. In terms of the difference between output and outcome, I guess the way I see it is if I take the Business Lincolnshire indicator, I can't remember the number, very focal glasses, I've only had them 3 years and I still can't see the right bit. But if we take Business Lincolnshire as an example, our proposed indicator is something like 2,500 businesses assisted. Now we could advise 2,500 businesses and not do a very good job, and the outcome would not be more businesses grow in the county. So what we're looking at is saying that the output is counting the number we advise. The outcome, which we'll measure annually, is what has that achieved.
Councillor Daesh, please.
Thank you very much for the report. Perspective, if you've got a small business and there's less than 50 people employed and perhaps there's less than 5, have we got any data on those extremely small businesses that are renting out those units? Because is it on turnover of money or is it on actual employment?
Go on, Justin. So typically the data's on both, and yes, we do keep that information, and we do things like tenant satisfaction surveys. Our centre managers, who manage not just the centres but also the rest of our portfolio, go and talk to the tenants on a regular basis. So there's a revolving picture of that information, and yes, we do recognise there's a difference between micro and small, and we take that into account.
Councillor Robinson, please. Oh, sorry, Daesh, shouldn't say.
Yeah.
Karen,
I was just going to say that if you've got a unit with a singular or 3 people working from that unit and they're keeping up all their payments, etc., and they start to turn over quite a substantial amount of money, would you ask them to move on or would you ask them to stay?
So we will bring a full paper about the economic portfolio, the annual review, next time. But as a headline, we have leases in place which make it difficult to ask people to move on. And it's been one of the perennial challenges in the whole of economic development across the country, is that the objective of your economic premises being to help small businesses to grow and move on, and the legal realities of the leasing process are not always aligned. It's also a difficult message, isn't it? Council asks successful business to leave. So there's all of that that plays into it, but our overall objective and our relationship with the businesses means that we do have a fairly decent throughput of businesses who go, right, we're too big for this now, we're going there.
So would you say a lot of the time, if they grow out of the premises or make a certain amount of money, they usually go on their own term rather than be forced out? Yeah. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the report. Yeah, very much looking forward to the future reports, and especially in the procurement, some good targets to look at for the future. Just one thing in terms of the meaning of Lincolnshire, is that counting Greater Lincolnshire in terms of those statistics, or is that going to be split up? Because obviously if we aren't procuring from Lincolnshire, I would much prefer it, so the second best option would be Greater Lincolnshire. Obviously my division is sort of near more towards Grimsby, or if, you know, Gainsborough would be Scunthorpe. So is there any sort of preference there? So a Lincolnshire first, but also a Greater Lincolnshire first sort of goal.
So from the perspective of the growth indicators, we are looking at Lincolnshire County, but I defer to Laura around local SMEs. I assume you're the same, but...
Yeah, so at the moment, and this is one of the pieces of work that we are looking at, ensuring consistency across both teams. So when you do receive reports from economic development and also procurement and commercial, we are talking about consistent approaches. At the moment in our contract procedure rules, we list Lincolnshire business as any business within the 20-mile radius of Lincolnshire. So that is something we're currently reviewing, say checking with our economic development colleagues and confirming with portfolio holder to essentially ensure we're all on the same page and we all agree with that definition.
So would that include, that 20-mile radius, that include North East and North Lincolnshire in that?
My geography isn't brilliant. Yes, Justin says yes.
Sorry, I was calculating myself. I didn't know whether you knew on the top of your head. No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Councillor Rundle, please.
Hi, great. Thank you very much for this. It's a lot of hard work and doing great. Could I come back to the Lincolnshire, Visit Lincolnshire and Tourism, and the performance indicator for the website that you operate under Visit Lincolnshire? I find that when there's a lot of events on in Lincolnshire, obviously more people visit. Is there going to be a performance indicator on how many events the Lincolnshire Council organise? Or I don't know if this is the right question or if this is something that's things, but it sort of links in with tourism. I really love tourism. I love Lincolnshire. So I wondered if there would be some sort of way that we could see how much that the council is organising, say a marathon or the Christmas fair or various events that go on without the county.
As you'll know from the conversation at the start of the Scrutiny Committee, we're bringing a tourism strategy paper in the autumn, and the approach within there is that it's absolutely whole council. In terms of the three departments represented in this Scrutiny Committee, so my growth services, Karen's property services, Michelle's procurement services, we're not really event organisers, but I think, I'm saying think rather than know, that cultural services have some indicators about impact of events that report into the Children's and Cultural Scrutiny Committee.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Baxter, please.
Thank you. I think all of these are quite challenging to get into the detail, and it kind of begs the question of how you measure it. So to pick up on Councillor Arundel's point, if you said how many events, you might include the dog show, or you might include the £300,000 that we've spent on the Tour de Britain bike ride thing, which is that one event, or is that umpteen events within the same calendar? Similarly, there are some of these where, so if you look at PI 92, percentage of reactive maintenance tasks fixed on first attendance with no requirement for return visits. What's the timescale for that? If someone comes out and fixes a tap, has that tap got to last for a week or a month, or is it just that it stopped dripping in the first place? It's there must be a way to measure that. On the detail of it, some of the things I was going to say have already been said, but PI 75, could I ask if my understanding is correct, that there's too many words in it? The number of small business tenants provided with accommodation support in the council's portfolio of economic properties. Does that mean the same as the number of small business tenants in the council's portfolio? Is it the same thing? I think that provided with accommodation support is the same thing. Because what... Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Do you want to answer the first one, Mary? Did you want...
So yeah, so we are able to monitor that. So it depends on the job. So a dripping tap has a lower priority in our priority scale, our priority matrix, to, I don't know, so, a serious air conditioning unit that's out of order. So it depends on the priority, what the response time is, but our intention is to get there and fix it first time through the gathering of more information than we used to do, so that we can go with the correct equipment and spares to try and repair it there and then. So the idea is that we don't generate a second visit which creates additional cost. So we want to go there first time, fix it on whatever priority is appropriate to the job, and then we don't have to make the second visit.
I get you. So if it doesn't conk out, if it conks out later on, that's a separate thing. It's whether or not you've got it working the first time.
Yes.
Got it. Right. Yes. Okay. So
yeah.
So the second question was about the numbers of tenants. Am I right in thinking that by being a tenant, they are automatically being provided with accommodation support?
In terms of the way we're measuring, yes, and we'll have a look at the language.
Thank you for that. On the property portfolios, I'm a bit worried about PI 93, which is revenue savings achieved from property assets declared surplus and disposed of. I'm worried that by setting a target for it, you're going to encourage the disposal of assets. If we disposed of this asset and gave it away, then that would hit that target. It would absolutely blow that target out of the water, but it wouldn't necessarily be a good thing for Lincolnshire. Some people might think it was, but I don't. So just because we're getting rid of I don't think that necessarily getting rid of buildings is a good indicator. And missing from this list of property, I don't know why it's front of mind, but thinking about gas and electricity, where are we picking up the change in consumption of gas use across the council's portfolio? Obviously that's not an exact science either, for the same as all the rest of them. There's some nuance in it, but who is watching to see if our overall consumption is higher this year than last year for gas and electric than would be expected, taking into account the weather outside and so on? I think I went to the Environment Committee the other day. I don't think it fits on the Environment Committee. I think it is a property question, but I think if we're serious about trying to minimise the environmental and financial costs of energy use, then that should be in there somewhere, somehow. I'll stop
Thank
there.
you. Yeah. Sorry, Marie, I keep calling you Mary, but at least I'm not calling you councillor. So, you want to go to Karen?
Thank you, Chairman. If I just pick up the first question, then I'll pass over to my colleague, Marie. So part of the disposals is regarding the executive paper that was brought to full council for the property rationalisation programme, and there was revenue savings identified in there. A little later on in the agenda, my colleague Mark will go through the progress of that. So that is not something that we as officers have identified. We've put proposals forward. They have been agreed as a report for disposal to the council. So what we are doing is reporting on that paper that was taken and agreed and the revenue savings. Thank you. I'll just hand over to Marie for the second.
So yes, energy falls within my area of responsibility. So I'm managing with my colleague Claire all the energy across the estate, and we do have a relationship with an energy management specialist who works within Vinci facilities as part of our agreement, and we are constantly monitoring the performance of every building in the estate. So it is being monitored, it is being managed, and there is a target we have an internal target for a 7.5% reduction this year in energy consumption.
Okay, thank you. If that target exists, then it would be great to have it reported here. I'd also say that if you're reviewing the way that your brokerage works, it might be that ESPO or WIPO or any of the other brokers could help with that too, but don't want to go back there. On procurement, the first one is percentage of contracts on the contracts register with Lincolnshire registered address. That doesn't at all look at the value of the contracts. Does that matter? Is it as good to have lots of very small contracts as it would be to have one big contract? I don't know the answer. I would have thought people like JCB or Vinci or wherever else might have a registered address elsewhere, but it would be great to be able to encourage them to employ locally and local labour. And finally, the percentage of, number 54, percentage of procurement activity is, social value, you've picked that up already, Councillor Bowles, so that's my lot.
Thank you. Who wants to? Laura.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Baxter. If I just refer you to PI 52, I realise it's not written exactly the same, but the intention would be we'd report spend through that PI, but we can update the word in to ensure it's clear that that's with the council's contract register as well, so they're aligned.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Just come to me just during just reading the place growth again with the Visit Lincolnshire. Just wondered if there was able to, and not necessarily a KPI specifically for this, but just to have a look at where specifically those the intention of making a direct booking in certain areas. So, for example, Lincoln, Boston, where the higher percentage, and break it down in those areas to see where we're getting the most clicks and the most traction, and seeing where we're maybe falling behind and sort of where we can push further.
Yeah, we monitor that monthly, and at the moment Stamford is the most popular.
Just quickly, will that be in the reports in that part of that as well? Just in interesting statistic.
We'd definitely bring it into the paper on visitor economy strategy in the autumn. Yeah, I don't think stuff will move quickly enough to bring it into a quarterly report.
Okay, Councillor Dye, did you have something to say?
Yeah, thank you. Just something that came to my head as Councillor Baxter was asking his question on PI 75. Accommodation support, Chairman, does that include virtual tenancies? Because I know the council offers virtual tenancies, so that would be an easy way to boost the figures without them actually taking up an actual tenancy physically.
No.
Fantastic. I don't think we've got any more speakers, so we will move to the proposal. I move that the committee has considered the report to the executive councillors and that we support the recommendations to the executive councillors. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dyche. Those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. That is agreed. On to item 8. Service level performance reporting against the performance framework for 2025-26, quarter 4. The scrutiny report can be found on pages 83 to 98 of the agenda. The actions required are that the committee is invited to consider and comment on the growth service level 2025-26 performance as at quarter 4. The report will be presented by Samantha Harrison, Head of Economic Development. Over to you, Samantha.
Thank you. So I'd like to report back on the final quarter, so it's the January to March performance 2026, and this is then the culmination of the activity for the year. So I'm pleased to report in terms of our 3 KPIs that the businesses supported by the council has exceeded by a long way the target. So our target was 2,500 and our actual was 4,628. By way of explanation, this is because we received during the year, not at the beginning of the year when we were target setting, we received just under £1 million of UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So it enabled us to actually enhance the services that the Growth Hub provides to businesses. So we have, as a result of that money, been able to support an awful lot more businesses than we had initially envisaged, which is great news for the county and it has led to some great outcomes. Furthermore, in terms of the qualifications achieved by adults, we had programmed qualifications throughout the year. I'm pleased to say that they have all come to fruition. The courses have been provided and we have reached that target and exceeded that target. The target that we always knew we would have a slight challenge with is the level of external funding secured by the council. Our target was 15 million. We came in at 12.2 million, and this is because one of our major contracts, the Skills Boot Camps contract, there was a change in an innovation from the government, from the Department for Education to the Department for Work and Pensions. So the timing of the contract got delayed, and we also had a fine stop date. The other element here is that once somebody has undertaken a skills boot camp, they then have to wait 6 months before we can claim the outputs. So the last of our 53 cohorts that have gone through a skills boot camp, they finished on the 31st of March. So we now need to wait until September to be able to claim the funding from government. So we haven't lost the funding for Lincolnshire, it's just that it'll be delayed and it'll come into quarter 2 this year for the new performance indicators. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Bowles.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. Yeah, I think it's good to see the requests that we've made in previous committees a long time ago around the additional information around where some of that support is broken down into districts and areas, so we know where it's getting and the type of businesses. That's been really useful. And I think the case study, in particular, the gentleman in Gainsborough, is very good to see. If nobody's seen that, or if you do visit Gainsborough, call in and pay him a visit on the riverside. Turned a completely derelict and eyesore toilet block into a thriving cafe shop. So it is a really good news story, that. In terms of the figures, obviously you've stated the increase in that we're able to offer support we're able to offer businesses due to the UK SPF funding. How sustainable then do we think these figures are? If that funding reduces as we've drawn, what contingency have we got in place to ideally maintain that level of support if the external funding does decrease?
Thank you. So we haven't got the funding for this year. So what we are doing is we have looked at our programmes, consolidated them. So at the moment, as previously someone would access advisory support and then they would go onto a programme. like a manufacturing business, they'd have a manufacturing advisor and then go on to a manufacturing programme. We've now dovetailed them together, so the advisor is part of the programme delivery, so it shortens the programme, but also the cost. So we have also been able to access some money from the government, so we have got some Growth Hub funding that has come directly from the Department for Business and Trade. We are using our core budget for economic development to support this, and we have got some legacy funding from the Local Enterprise Partnership. So there is a robust model, but hence our targets for next year are 2,800 businesses to be supported. So it's not the over the 4,000 that we've achieved this year. However, the other side of it, just to mention, we've really invested in our website. So there is very much a portal for people to have on-demand access to videos. They can look at them at any time of day. We are putting guides and fact sheets. So we've really bolstered that activity. So it is more self-serve. And then we've got our advisors as the follow-up and the more detailed support when businesses need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. We've got no more speakers then. I will close that section of the debate and we will move to the proposal. I move that the committee receives the report and asks that our comments and feedback be cascaded across relevant teams. Can I ask that you raise your hand if you agree? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. On to item 9, Property Rationalisation Annual Report 25 to 26. The scrutiny report can be found on pages 99 to 112 of the agenda. The committee is invited to consider, comment on and formally endorse the progress and achievements of the Property Rationalisation Programme during the 25-26 financial year, together with the proposed future direction of the programme. The report will be introduced by Karen Kassar, the Assistant Director of Corporate Property. Over to you, Karen.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And you've outlined the action required for us as officers, but what I will do is hand over to my colleague, Mark Eyre, who has led this programme and delivered some really good pieces of work with officers across corporate property and within our transformation, Stacey Mitchell, who is here today. So I will hand over to Mark to give you an overview. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen, and thank you, Chair. So, yeah, this is a report just capturing the state of play for the previous financial year of Property Rationalisation Programme. So we brought a paper last summer just to go through what was on the offering for property rationalisation. It captures our position. Brief summary, just to give a reminder and recap about the programme purpose. It's to increase revenue savings, which was referenced in the PIs earlier there. So increase revenue savings through targeted property disposals, generate capital receipts and reduce underutilised buildings and land, improve operational efficiency. Original programme potential was £16.64 million in capital receipts, with £1.6 million worth of revenue savings. Key achievements for 25-26, we've managed to dispose of £3.151 million worth of property, which has achieved a revenue reduction within our MTFP of £401,000. That's been achieved through 11 property disposals, 1 lease renegotiation and 2 mothballed buildings. So it's clear we're basically delivering across a number of different service areas within corporate property, not just sort of our estates function through selling properties, but we're reducing our holding costs on our properties that we're holding on to for strategic purposes. Major successes, just to draw attention to some of the properties that we have managed to crack through, is a Crown House sale, which it's underutilised property that we didn't have a purpose for within the council. We got a local business that acquired that as a result of their expansion requirements. Holbeach Minerva House as well, that was handed over to a local academy trust so that they could expand their educational offering. Just further into the report as well, it does talk about repurposing of some sites. So the rationalisation programme is not just there to get rid and try and reduce as much as possible. What we try to do as well is make a clear service offering. So if there is a emerging service need, such as the SEND programme, for example, we do repurpose properties to make sure that we're not selling where we could actually repurpose, and reducing costs that way through not having to go and incur expense through buying property. These changes have adjusted the overall potential slightly, so that means that we've got a £15.436 million potential receipt and a £1.423 million revenue saving potential. But the message I'd give to the committee is that the programme keeps getting added to. So we're actively looking for opportunities within property to say, are there properties that could be brought in? And that's been a kind of a theme throughout the past year, which is why we've had that level of success, really. Future outlook, we've got a number of reviews, strategic reviews required for properties, which will result in an outcome, hopefully, that will meet the aims of the programme. The appendices summarise a number of factors, including capital receipts and savings by property. Really just here to take any questions, but also to ask for endorsement of the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Bowles, to start with, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Start on a jolly note. I think the way this policy now works, I think, is a success story for Scrutiny. Those of us who have been on this committee since it started in its new form will remember when this first came, the requests for local members to be included in these decisions and have communications was hit with a bit of a buffer, and that wasn't going to be in place. Those of us who were here argued it, and to give Councillor Kelly credit, he did listen to that and has implemented it. And from my experience now as a ward member, that has been very beneficial when these properties in my division have come on board with this. We have had the conversations with Will. I've been able to put my point across, and that's opened wider conversations into other things about properties. My main issue, again, banging on about this today, is social and community benefits. I don't want to be accused of getting political, so I will apologise to my colleagues on my right about historic things. I'd like to understand a bit more about what we are doing differently now. Whilst you mentioned it, Mark, in what you said about the financial savings, yes, but you're also looking at the community and social benefits of some of these facilities. I had a massive battle over a significant number of years around one of these properties in my divisions. We had charities who wanted to take that facility on. It was in rack and ruin. They wanted to take it on, redevelop it, use it. At every opportunity, we were hit with buffers, financial requests, and that just fell flat. They're now flying in a modern new facility, and this facility is just dangerous. It's an eyesore. It's down to be. It looks like the option is just going to be to demolish it and release the lease of the land to save the money. So what are we doing differently now to ensure that that would have had a completely different outcome now?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So when it comes to any property we've got on our list, what we do is, I'm hypothesising here, but say if we have a property on the market for disposal, we'll make sure that we capture all interest. That might be highest bidder, might be somebody who could bring an offer social value. Officers, when they've got hopefully a range of options to consider for the future use of that building, they then do an assessment based on what the offering is, so different social values, etc., different offerings. If they can sometimes bring a monetary offering in terms of social value contributions to the wider area as well. So it's not purely based on finance when it comes to a decision being made. Within our decision-making process, we consider the social value offerings, and there's examples of sort of properties that we have disposed of or accepted offers where there's a strong social value offering, as opposed to we've gone to what could be the, the highest monetary figure, because that's going to have the bigger impact in the local area beyond the achievement in the MTFB. So it is a balance, but it's a strong consideration, and like I said, I've seen good examples of that throughout the course of the past year's programme and sort of going forward, really.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have any other speakers?
Councillor Baxter next, please.
Thank you. Two quick things. One is I'm in correspondence with Mr Eyre about the Deepings Leisure Centre. I don't want to miss an opportunity to mention it, but I'm not clear where we are on the leisure centre nor with the rest of that school campus, so I'll hopefully catch up with you after the meeting. The second thing was about libraries. The former libraries which are mentioned, Bracebridge and Bourne former libraries, are they really, really old libraries, or are these libraries which were the really, really old libraries?
The one in Bracebridge.
Yes? So, okay. 60s. Okay, it's not been a library for a very long time. Couple of years. Sorry, can you tell me when the Bracebridge Heath Library and the other library on the list closed as libraries?
I don't think I'd have the date fresh in my mind, but I would be able to find that out for you and report separately in terms of when they're closed. But I think, the purpose of them being on the programme is that there wasn't a need for them for such a long period of time, and we searched through in terms of our offerings that other service areas could use as well, and local sort of uses didn't have anything that came really forward. So that's the purpose of them being on the disposals list. But I could certainly find out when they were last sort of occupied and functioning as a library, if we've got that information available to you.
No, thank you, Chair. I think I feel reassured on that issue, so please don't. But the Deepings Leisure Centre thing, please talk to me whenever you can.
I will.
At what point does the property go through the executive? Obviously, it will be a pre-scrutiny agenda on there, but my question is what information is given to them. For example, let's say there's a property which could be repurposed into something. Do you give them like 3 examples of what the best 3, or do you open the book, or you just give one recommendation? How does it work in a transparency point of view, please?
So when it comes to decision making, we had a delegated authority through the actual the paper we took last year to relevant portfolio holder being consulted on the options, but also that consultation is the exposure. Local members have that exposure as well, so they've got the opportunity to comment, and it's captured in the statement of decision. So what we do is going back again to that point about trying to capture as many options as possible through, often through marketing or sometimes through engagement, through service areas that we know have got a need, those kind of things, or sort of third parties that we're aware of. They're captured in a statement of decision that's then approved by our director, but also it's reviewed by the portfolio holder. So we have that sort of full capture of what options are there. And, we always welcome that opportunity as well to have other options presented to us if members feel like there's an opportunity that might not be as clearly put forward in the paper, really.
So each property decision goes directly to the executive and they make the final decision in the end, is that right?
It goes to the exec director for the decision. It was a delegation under the report last year, but in consultation with the portfolio holder.
Brilliant, thank you.
That's all right.
Councillor Dyer?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mark, for the report. Just a couple of questions. I was going to ask about Deepings Leisure Centre, actually. Just Deepings Leisure Centre, the status in the far right column, awaiting potential academy-style lease transfer proposal. If that doesn't happen, what's the current position with Deepings Leisure Centre? I've got a few more on property. Shall I just fire through them? Is that all right? Or Do you want one at a time, Chairman?
Do you want to answer that one first? Yeah.
We're pursuing an opportunity with the Academy Trust there, as you've said. You know, there's they have got sort of an option that they've presented to us in terms of what they could use the site for, so that's being reviewed. If that weren't to be deemed a viable option, then we look at other options such as, you know, do nothing, looking at other uses, or potentially sort of removing the building, demolishing it. So that would get presented as a full options sort of available.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would assume we could, as a committee, potentially request that that specific decision is scrutinised by this committee, potentially at a suitable time. But I'll leave that one with you. There we go. You've got that one. Gainsborough Marshall's Yard. I mean, I'm familiar with Marshall's Yard, the shopping centre in where West Lindsey District Council is. Just what is in this report, Gainsborough Marshall's Yard? Is that what this is referencing? That Marshall's Yard? And then lease negotiation complete. Can you just explain what the site actually is and what's happening, please?
Yeah, so it's part of one of our area offices, and the conclusion of the transaction there resulted in a sort of a better lease sort of terms for the LCC. So it was like a reduction in our overall costs. So it's an area office in Gainsborough, and we did a really sort of attractive deal with the local district council to make it sort of work for both parties, and it was a reduction in what we were previously sort of paying towards our occupation in that area.
And then finally, Chairman, if I may, just Lincoln East-West Link Road, plots of land. Does that include the plots of land, for instance, underneath the bridge that are, I think there's some tanks quite shallowly buried under there, so there's not much of a use of some of the land there. Does that include all of that land, or is it just some of the plots along the East-West link?
We've got, as a council, an ownership parcel, which is it was used as a previous use for business purposes, which were then, you know, they weren't, it wasn't deemed a viable option. So it was kind of handed over from economic infrastructure at the time. That plot, then we've looked for additional uses, but there wasn't anything viable, so we were likely to market it. But because of its sort of pathway on the on that road scheme, or potential for it to be there, we retained it until we've got an outcome that's clear.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
Councillor Daesh.
Thank you for the report. Question is, what is the criteria for mothballing a property rather than selling it or reusing it?
Yeah, so when it comes to mothballing, there might be a strategic use for it that we don't necessarily want to fetter our ability to sort of take advantage of in the short to medium term future. So a great example, flavour of the month, LGR. We don't want to potentially demolish such or repurpose a large building, say, that could be used for a property use for LGR. So we're clear that we want to kind of retain certain properties rather than sell them. So we have an LGR assessment when it comes to any property that we dispose of, and it's thoroughly sort of scrutinised by officers and, you know, members through that consultation. We have to make sure that there's no opportunity missed. So, yeah.
Chair, so is there a maintenance contract for something that's shut up and not used, or is it continue use for something else?
There will be costs, but it's reduced costs based on a lack of occupation. So we would do the bare minimum to a property to make sure it can be held as part of mothballed sort of status, but it's not at the same cost as you would experience when it comes to an occupied building. So we do the bare minimum to make sure it's run as efficiently as possible.
So if LGR happens or it doesn't happen, do you make a decision towards that time whether you're going to keep it or not?
Yeah, I'd expect that that would be the case, that when, LGR, there's a decision, those properties are within the same remit as properties that we currently hold and occupy, for a sort of decision of either repurposing or, a surplus sort of decision being made that would then lead to a disposal.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. I think Councillor Bowles.
Sorry, you just sparked my interest when you were talking about the mothball properties. How can we be reassured, and I know what you say about doing the minimal maintenance, how can we be reassured that that is happening and any mothball properties are secured? Longwood House in Gainsborough has been mothballed for years. It is in absolute rack and ruin, a complete safety risk, set on fire numerous times, complete eyesore, because it hasn't been maintained and secured. What are we doing differently now to ensure any properties that are mothballed do not end up in that same state, that it is now beyond any sort of economical repair?
When it comes to I will answer on behalf of my colleague Murray, but I think within the sort of our ownership sort of structure, when we've got a vacant property, we do increased sort of security, which is an element of cost. So we will have mobile patrols, we'll have risk assessments, which sort of assess criteria for where we'd want to do extra security, like boarding up and things like that. So it's a difference in terms of what you'd have if you were, say, a property that was vacant in the middle of the campus, where there is an on-site security presence. When you've got a site that's on a peripheral area of the sort of area of Lincolnshire, then we would have like enhanced security, mobile patrols, etc.
Sorry, Chair, can I just clarify if that is a change in a process or a strengthened process, or has that been the same process that should have been followed for years? Because my experience is that does not happen. Like I say, Longwood House, that has been derelict for as long as 10 years I've been here, and it's not been secured, there's not been safety, it was set on fire that bad, it was boarded up after that. That's all been ripped off within a matter of weeks. So if that is a new process, that's great. If that's a historical process, I'm not reassured that that happens effectively.
So Longwood House situation predates probably any of us here to comment on that, but that is the process that we follow, and that follows our Vinci contract as well, that's in place. So we have a set criteria of what we will do with a building when it's in a mothballed state, and that aligns to our insurance requirements as well, to ensure that our insurance for the property remains valid. So I don't know what was in place at the times when the issues happened at the property in Gainsborough, but going forward, that's how we manage our properties, through a risk assessment process in line with our insurance requirements.
Thank you. Councillor Dyche, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, just quickly, when you've got all these properties, have you got a list of every singular property that we own? So can you do a review on those properties to say if they are viable to keep or to sell, and if they're mothballed, give reasons why?
Yes, we do. And earlier, when I mentioned the property rationalisation programme, that piece of work was carried out and a report was provided. We can share a link with you to that document that was taken to the executive, but that does hold all of that information that you're looking at. And also, we are re-evaluating regularly based on information that we receive from service areas across the council and for their usage of properties. But that piece of work has definitely been carried out because a report was provided.
Thank you very much. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think
no problem.
You weren't a member of the committee, and it was exempt, wasn't it? So there's no chance you probably would have seen that. Okay, if that's all of the questions, we will end the debate and move on to the proposal. I move that the committee receives the report and ask that our comments and feedback be cascaded across relevant teams. Can I ask that you raise your hand if you agree? Thank you, that is agreed. And on to item 10, Growth Scrutiny Committee Work Programme. This is the last item on today's agenda, and the report can be found on pages 113 to 118, the actions required. Members are invited to comment on the content of the committee's work programme. The report will be presented by Chiara Hatsioanu, the Health Scrutiny Officer. So over to you, Chiara.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Members will be glad to know that this is the final item on the agenda, and you will soon be able to go home. So, in terms of the work programme, as I always say, this is a living and breathing document that is shaped by the views of this committee, as well as business that is relevant to the remit of this committee. And I do have actually a couple of changes to report since the publication of this agenda pack. So first of all, the Sleaford demolition paper, the report has now been moved to the committee's meeting of the 15th of September, and it will go through executive on the 6th of October. The traveller side strategy has been removed from the work programme at this stage. And finally, there is a new item titled Water and Wastewater Contract Transition to New Provider, which will go to the Executive Committee meeting on the 1st of September, and that means that we will be considering this pre-decision scrutiny report at our next meeting on the 28th of July. Now, as it emerged from today's meeting, the full tourism strategy and update data will come back to this committee in autumn 2026. I should be able, following this meeting, to liaise with officers and hopefully have a specific date to add onto the agenda in our work programme. Also, following from this meeting today, the State of the County dashboard and annual update will return at some point in 2027, and we will have an associated member workshop on data interpretation that is a separate element, but it's not going to come into a formal meeting. It will rather be kept informal. And finally, any further comments or suggestions on topics that members would like to see included in future agenda items, please do raise them with me now, or you may approach me offline following today's meeting. If I missed anything, please do state so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think Councillor Dyer, do you want to come in?
Chairman, why has the traveller strategy been removed? Thank you.
Yeah, there is a rationale. Go on, Chiara.
Thank you very much indeed. So, in light of the current uncertainty arising from the local government reorganisation, the Council is reviewing its strategic priorities and associated capital programme. At this stage, traveller sites proposals are not being progressed as part of the property rationalisation programme. The current focus of the programme is on assets that can be brought forward more readily to generate capital receipts and reduce ongoing revenue costs. Given the potential for changes to governance arrangements and asset ownership under the LGR, it is considered prudent to defer further development of the traveller strategy at this time. This position will be kept under review, and the strategy may be revisited once there is greater clarity regarding the LGR and its implications for service delivery and asset planning. Thank you.
Chairman, we've just approved item 9, Property Rationalisation Annual Report 25-26, and within that, it's got the various travellers' site, and it has the status of them awaiting the traveller strategy. So we've just approved a document, and now the next item on the agenda has just said we're not actually carrying that forward. So if this has happened, why was this within the last report?
I think it's still technically true that it is awaiting. It's just that this has been basically moved until after LGR. Sorry about that confusion.
We just don't have a specific date.
Councillor Corey, did you want to come in?
Thank you, and thank you for your answer on that one, Chiara. Are you applying that cover-all to County Farm strategy as well?
No, the County Farm strategy will be coming in autumn. I'm pending confirmation of the exact date for that to happen.
Okay, and windmills?
Same for that. I've no notification that is being pulled from the work programme or items to be programmed in the future.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no more speakers, we will move to the proposal. I move that we receive the report and approve the existing work programme as detailed in pages 63 to 68, including the amendments reported, removed, highlighted in the discussion today. And so can I ask you raise your hand if you agree? Thank you. That is carried. And that brings an end to the meeting. And don't forget to watch the other meeting later today between Ghana and England. Go on.